But now, the best I read in 2021. It was a dark year, and these titles reflect it. So in that sense, all of these novels are appropriate for the times. Definitely. The French champagne. I hate to be that guy cracking stale jokes, but that is one of the funniest things I've ever seen. And Orson Welles is a hero of mine. So, anyways. Good evening and Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome to Better Than Food Book Reviews. I'm your host, Clifford Lee Sargent. Great to see you as always. Hope you're doing well. Get that champagne. And I'm afraid that's a lie. We can't call it champagne. It's sparkling wine. You know that? You can't call it that unless it's actually from the region of Champagne, I believe. Anyways, enough pretension for the first 15 seconds. Welcome to the Favorites of 2021 video, the 5 favorite books of mine that I read in 2021, one of the darkest years on record. What are you gonna do? But who cares? We probably read some good books and there's plenty more to come and lots of reasons to stay indoors and not go outside. So while the world's burning and we're still not talking to our neighbors or whatever for various reasons, make yourself another coffee, pour yourself another glass of champagne, and crack open another fresh spine. But first, today's video is sponsored by the Ridge Wallet. Brand new year, brand new you, brand new wallet. Perhaps you never want to buy one again. In that case, may I suggest picking up one of these. These are awesome. They are light, sleek, industrial, badass pieces of little minimalist design. Holds up to 12 cards, plus room for cash on the back. This is the black Damascus model. This is currently my favorite of them all. Very, very cool looking. The durable material means that each wallet comes with a lifetime warranty. You could buy this one wallet and literally carry it for life. To put it in simpler terms, this wallet will probably outlive me. And if this hasn't convinced you yet, check out their 40,000 5-star reviews. 40,000. In fact, the Ridge team is so confident you'll like it, they'll let you test drive it for up to 45 days. You can send it back for a full refund if you don't love it. Get 10% off your order today with free worldwide shipping and returns by going to ridge.com/betterthanfood and using the discount code betterthanfood. The link is below. Thank you very much. Also, any books that you buy via the link to Amazon below, the show gets a kickback from. In fact, the show receives a kickback no matter what you purchase if you just use those links. If you're going to make a purchase on Amazon anyways, anything helps. Thank you very much. Also, I've started a bookstore. I have linked to it below. Head on over there and check out all the used books we have. We have sold out of our inventory within the first 24 hours, but more shall be going up this evening, and there's tons of good stuff to come. So I hope you find something on there that you like. It's very curated by myself and my wife, and I hope you appreciate our taste, and we sure think you will. So please check it out. Thank you so much. Okay, so the obvious ones that I read last year, I'll just skip them. The first one would be Gravity's Rainbow by Thomas Pynchon. It's a seemingly endless, astounding demonstration of wit and intelligence combined with knee-slap humor, fascinating references, really just outrageous on every single level, and ambitious to the point of seeming impossibility. This is Pynchon's magnum opus and probably a book that will outlast the vast majority of the ones written in the 20th century. It's all about a paranoid man named Tyrone Slothrop during World War II, kind of traveling throughout Europe, in the process of discovering that he has been how would you put it, sabotaged in a Pavlovian way, discovering the truth of these experiments that were done on him when he was very, very young that connect him in a very sinister fashion to the German V2 rocket. Zany Americana and experimental madness abound. I mean, it's one of the craziest goddamn things you have ever read. But it is so obviously genius that it kind of just blows everything else out of the water. It's like, why try? And it's also kind of a musical with its own songs, so you read all the lyrics to them, and sometimes they're in, I think they're in different languages, if I remember correctly. It's amazing. It's an incredible book. There's really no reason not to read it as many times as a lifetime will allow, no matter where you're at in life. So yeah, skipping because it's an obvious choice. Next, Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway, of course. Minimalist Brilliance by one of America's greatest authors. It's a very simple story. It's beautiful. It's just a poor Cuban fisherman catches the biggest catch of his life, the big one. But then he has to fight off sharks in the Gulf in order to keep it as he's towing it back to shore. Beautiful book. Very minimalist. Really, I think a book that really made Hemingway very, very famous. And for good reason, in my opinion. Not everybody likes it, that's okay. I love it. It's a meditation on life and struggle. It's certainly a very manly, masculine book, but I'm sure it can be appreciated by both genders. Simple, tragic, beautiful. Skipping because, again, obvious choice. And The Elementary Particles by Michel Houellebecq. Because, I just chose a Houellebecq last year, and I can't repeat myself. But it's an amazing book. I mean, I can't recommend this one highly enough for those who are who can take it. It's easily one of the darkest stories I've ever read. So it's about two brothers, and one who's kind of successful, the other who's pretty much a loser, and the fate of modern relationships in Western society between men and women. It's all about sex. It's about everybody's desirability on the sexual marketplace. So, that brings in, aging, loneliness, the contending with death, contending with falling out of love. It's abysmal. But occasionally funny and always insightful. It's quintessential Houellebecq. It may be his magnum opus. And I think he said that it was the one he actually put the most effort into. And it shows. I thought it was excellent, though pessimistic. But I love Houellebecq, so yeah. Would have been one of my 5, but I chose a Houellebecq last year, so voila. And The Cask of Amontillado by Edgar Allan Poe, because it's a short story. An exceptionally well-crafted tale of revenge wherein an aristocrat, kind of a fallen aristocrat, lures his nemesis down to his family's catacombs on the pretense of having him help him verify the authenticity of a cask of Amontillado sherry. And then, taking his revenge. And man, is it a cold story! But it's excellently written. It's a very dark comedy at the same time. So is The Elementary Particles. I should mention that. But yeah, wine and horror lovers, eat your heart out. I mean, it's one of the greatest short stories. It's my favorite short story personally. But it's a short story. So, moving on. But now, the best I read in 2021. It was a dark year, and these titles reflect it. So in that sense, all of these novels are appropriate for the times. Definitely. So starting off with the one with the cheeriest title in the whole bunch, His Name Was Death by Raphael Bernal. Originally published in 1947, but published for the first time in English by New Directions in 2021. Translated by my friend Kit Schluter, who translated the Book of Manel. This is a story about a misanthropic man who abandons society and goes to just live in the jungle with a local tribe as his only neighbors. And he begins studying mosquitoes one day. And then he begins translating their sounds. And then he develops a dictionary. And then he constructs a language. And then he commissions, I think, a local member of the tribe to make him a flute, like a reed flute or something. And he starts using that to communicate with them because he can't make the sounds with his lips, just a human. So he starts playing this flute and speaking with them. And it works. They understand him. So things get very interesting very quickly when they start having conversations. And he gains an understanding of their extremely kind of rigorous and very cold and calculated hierarchical organization that is completely dictatorial and ruthless, really, completely merciless. And he discovers that, in fact, they are plotting a war with human beings. And I know, right? But really, it actually is a surprisingly fluid narrative. It actually works. It's one of those you got to read it. It's not a novel that pitches well just because it's so outlandish and imaginative, but it works. It's amazing. So yeah, it was highly unique, very original, with a very dark ending that surprised me, which I always love. And that was not the case for all the novels on this list, as we'll get into. But yeah, I enjoyed it very much. His Name Was Death by Raphael Bernal. I hope that somebody adapts it into a film. I think it really actually lends itself to a cinematic adaptation. All right, number 4, as it were, As I Lay Dying by William Faulkner. A gift and recommendation from my friend and patron Jeff. Published in 1930. A poor Southern family composed of a father and his children, who have a large range in age, there's a bunch of sons and one daughter, embark on like a mythically arduous journey to bury one of the most sinister and complex and compelling characters I've ever come across in literature. Addie Bundren, the deceased matriarch, their mother. The narrative is told in all the different voices of the characters in the story, much like The Sound and the Fury, and they all differ wildly in age, greatly ranging in ages, from the young boy in the story to the deceased woman herself. And so many different perspectives and temperaments add a lot of depth to the narrative. And it has some truly unforgettable imagery. I mean, there's this one scene where they're saving this horse from a burning barn, and there's this kind of surreal metamorphosis that takes place where the horse kind of turns into a coffin, and that coffin being, Addie Bundren's coffin. A Southern Gothic epic if there ever was one. Not quite as good as Absalom, which is still my favorite Faulkner so far of the three I've read, including this one. Not as profound, but, well, I don't know if that's the right word, but it's easily one of the best things you're going to read. I mean, if you like Southern Gothic fiction, this is like 101, this is where to start, for sure. Really enjoyed it. So, moving on. Speaking of Southern Gothic fiction, number 3, Lord of Dark Places by Hal Bennett, published in 1970. Oh my God, what the fuck? This was recommended by my friend and patron Charles. One of the best transgressive novels I've ever read, and I think the only Black or African American transgressive novel that I know of. Really, really, kind of singular and outstanding and untouchable as far as intensity. You're not going to outdo this thing, so to speak. This is the most intense book I have ever read, but somehow it still works. All of it comes together as far as like a cohesive narrative with a lot of depth and a lot of range. I mean, I laughed, I cried, like legitimately. The Vietnam part made me cry. I mean, it's a Southern Gothic story. It starts as a Southern Gothic story, where the main character is the focal point of this new strange religion created by his father. And then, that all falls apart and he escapes up north, and it turns into like a kind of almost like a midnight cowboy narrative, like in the mid or late 60s during the time of the race riots in Newark, New Jersey. Really dark, really gritty, really hard boiled, and tons of like pornographic writing, Jean Genet, right? But American, right? So, I mean, it's deeply, deeply, viciously fucked up, but it's so raw and real and honest. I mean, there's nothing like it. I have never, ever read anything like that. And it's also kind of funny, It's got this weird kind of like, this weird kind of Americana humor running through the whole thing. It's taking so many things from so many different places and kind of throwing them all together, and really could give a fuck what anybody thinks about it. It just does not care. I don't know. It's just so punk. I really, really loved it. I really loved it. I would not recommend it to everybody at all. It's not for everybody, but it was definitely for me. I was really impressed. So there you go. And I think it's really quite unfortunate, if not criminal, that he wasn't better known during his lifetime. So, yeah. And for number 2, another author who was not very well known during his lifetime, but did become very famous after his death, was Nathaniel West. And number 2 is Miss Lonelyhearts by Nathaniel West. This book, God. Well, published in 1933. The only thing that could possibly take the place of number 1 on this list is exactly what it is. It's the only possible thing that could beat this short novella. Oh my God. Holy God, what a masterpiece in so few words. I mean, an absolutely stunning noir novel by an American author who died way too young. It's a story about a New York newspaperman, man, known only to us in the novel as Miss Lonelyhearts, because that's the title of a column he manages, wherein he answers cries for help from people who write into him seeking advice. And the trouble is that the column was originally just started as a joke, right? To lead to something else, I believe, if I remember correctly. But he got stuck managing it. And the trouble is, these people who write to him are in such a state of devastating anguish and desperation and suffering that he begins to break under the burden of the knowledge of all of it, of the knowledge of so much human suffering. And this is exacerbated by his boss, his editor named Shrike, this monolithic literary force representing the cynical, pessimistic truth of reality that they both inhabit, he and Miss Lonelyhearts. But the difference between them is that while Miss Lonelyhearts is having a real crisis, religious and just emotional, and just breaking under everything, breaking under the weight of the world, so to speak, Shrike has very much adapted in this kind of almost, he's like, there was a great essay that called him a modernist antihero, so I think of Shrike looking something like, like Don Draper's Twin Peaks alter ego. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's what Shrike is like. Shrike is like Don Draper's Twin Peaks alter ego. If you've never seen Twin Peaks, please go watch that. You'll get it. But that's what it is. Shrike is the dark version of Don Draper. He has very much adapted to the cold, callous world, and Miss Lonelyhearts very much is not, and actually goes through a kind of a religious metamorphosis. But yeah, this dichotomy makes for one of the most fascinating short novels I've come across. The only issue is that I saw the ending coming from several miles away. It's very, you watch any like noir film, you'll see it coming. But maybe that's just because it's been so ingrained in the culture. I don't know. It's a genius book. It's incredible. And those monologues from Shrike are just begging to be analyzed. There's so much in there. I mean, there's like Wee's mom references in the book. I mean, there's like all kinds of stuff. I mean, tons of material, tons of food for thought. Better than food. Anyway, moving on. Number one. I mean, you could have guessed it. And it's a little bit of a cheat because I had reviewed it way back, but I deleted it because it sucked. But Crash by the British author J.G. Ballard, published in 1973. The greatest of the greatest as far as transgressive novels are concerned, just about. And also the greatest as far as like forward-thinking science fiction. One of the most impossible to copy books I've ever read. Probably right up there with like something like Naked Lunch or On the Road or Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Longtime viewers know I love this book, but I thought the new viewers should know how much I love this book, because this is the Holy Grail, really. And it was the best thing I'd read this year. And perfect for modern day. It still feels so fresh, so modern, so futuristic. The novel is kind of a demented experiment that involves a group of people, sort of a gang, right? Or like a small secret society around London who are violently aroused to the point of obsession with car crashes. The protagonist is a filmmaker also named Ballard, who one day gets in a wreck and becomes altered. Not only physically, like as in he's injured significantly, but in a sort of evolutionary or devolutionary manner, wherein all roads lead to kind of the fusion of flesh and metal in some sort of horrific, existential, technological singularity, if that's the right word. I don't know, is it? A kind of point of no return that will most likely result in his painful but kind of theatrically epic death. You could say that within Ballard, the character, his crash kind of awakens a sort of death drive. Haha. So it's a great setup, right? You know, he gets injured in this crash. He becomes focused on new things, focused on how many cars are around him all the time. It's kind of this almost like heightened experience of life and sexuality. It's kind of like it's going through a metamorphosis into something that is more kind of viscerally base, as in like kind of attracted to structures and architecture, like, you know, of cars, like glass and metal and all this stuff. And it's very, if you ever see the movie Tetsuo the Iron Man, it's kind of similar to that, you know, but not quite as dramatic as that, as in like he's not sprouting metal from his body, but he's becoming very attracted to these mechanisms that can produce these intense kind of cataclysmic moments, which would be car crashes, right? He's attracted to the vehicles that can manifest that moment of intensity in a sexual way. He's attracted to them in a sexual way, which is completely perverted, of course. I mean, it's insane, and that's kind of the thing. Like, I think reflecting on this, Ballard was like, this is the writing of an insane man, basically, which is kind of incredible and very interesting that he himself said that, you know, years after the fact of writing it. It was triggered by the death of his wife, and that left him alone with their 3 kids, you know, to raise by himself, which he did. They were vacationing in Spain, and she suddenly died. And then he had to drive with his kids back to England alone, you know, he and his children. So that'll change you, you know? And so that's where this came from, basically. So this gang of car crash fetishists are led by this kind of shadowy figure, this leader called Vaughn, who is this kind of ex-cultural figure genius, a scientist gone rogue, a sort of scarred, mad prophet of a new religion, and a dystopic, bright, shiny new future of broken glass and chrome. So while the plot is psychotic enough, right, obviously, the writing is also something to marvel at. The pornographic violence and the sort of relentless, visceral description has this kind of percussive, rhythmic effect on the reader. It's like going to Berghain or like some sort of industrial techno show and just getting blasted, you know, by the sound, like sampled sounds of people smashing metal walls with sledgehammers, you know? It has a kind of weird effect. An ordeal for which I think you really have to be ready to engage. There's a lot of description, anatomical description, as well as kind of like almost like product description, right? So these two kind of fuse, right? So like anatomical description as if it were medical, and product description as if one were outlining the details of a car, right? For whatever purposes. So it's like a medical textbook plus like a car manual plus pornography, and very violent, right? In the form of an existential novel. Okay, cool, just one of those. But yeah, it's an ordeal I think you really have to be prepared to engage in. Again, these books are not light. You know me, I like the intense shit. I think Ballard, the real author, is back and forth on whether or not this was a cautionary tale or a psychotic hymn. Really points out that, you know, he was in a very interesting state while writing this, and it's the real deal, you know. Definitely not for the squeamish. It's relentlessly grotesque and kind of completely nihilistic, but beautiful in a way in its chaotic vision and its just sheer poetic originality. My God. Wow. So those were my top 5 of last year, and here are my honorable mentions, though. No Longer Human by Osamu Dazai, published in 1948. A rather terrifying portrait of a man who continually feels that he is becoming something kind of subhuman, falling into alcoholism and suicidal thinking, but with an oddly subdued tone in the book. It's very off-putting. The Japanese author Dazai, who was very influential, actually did drown himself with a woman, I believe. And so this is a subdued, melancholic gaze into a deeply despairing soul. A book for 2021, if there ever was one. And there's an interesting story I tell in the review about the time the infamous Yukio Mishima met Dazai in real life. I suggest you check it out if you're a fan of either. The Cathedral of Mist by Paul Willems, published in 1983. This was sent to me by my friend John. A nocturnally beautiful collection of short stories by the Belgian author Paul Willems. Now available again from the publisher Wakefield Press on their website. It had sold out before, and they just got some in, I think, last month. So hopefully there are still some left. I highly recommend it. The best in the collection, as far as I'm concerned, would be the title one, wherein a father tells his son about the time he and a group of men came upon this strange architect's cathedral built of mist in the woods. Cue the Eric Satie. Immaculate. Beautiful story. And Train Dreams by Dennis Johnson. Wow. The last review of the year for me, actually. This was sent to me by my friend Luis. This is actually a Patron-Only review, and the last one I did of the year, and the second book I've read from Dennis Johnson. This is a fairly stunning example of how much a book can contain in so few pages. It's the epic lifetime of a railroad worker and lumberjack in the Pacific Northwest region, in Washington State and Idaho and British Columbia, in less than 120 pages. And one that features some events that are so unbelievable it really kind of skirts magical realism. But it's told in that kind of Dennis Johnson style that feels like, Cormac McCarthy had 3 beers, he doesn't drink, he's sober now, and started cracking jokes a la Suttree. I think most of it takes place in the first quarter or so of the 20th century. Eerie, tragic, gorgeous. What can I say? Werewolves. Yeah. Now you gotta check it out. Check out the review below. So yeah, those are my favorites of 2021. I hope you really enjoyed it, and I hope you read some great books. Please let us know in the comments below which were your favorites. What were your favorite top 5 books of 2021, or top 7 or whatever. You can add your honorable mentions as well. Please. All right. Coffee time. I can't send you sparkling wine, unfortunately, but, coffee time. For those of you who are new, welcome. Thank you for stopping by. I take the names of all the patrons on Patreon who have donated $5 or more per video to the show. I place their names in this mason jar. I pull out a name for every review I do, and whoever's name I pull out is sent a hard copy of the book I'm reviewing, plus a bag of coffee, roasted by yours truly. And the coffee is delicious. For this review, whoever wins is just going to be sent whichever book they would like out of the ones that I mentioned. So you can have your pick. If you'd like to get more information on that and help support the show, the link is below, as is all the information for the various tiers on Patreon. Thank you very much. All right. Unfortunately, international shipping is not included. Sorry about that. Thank you very much to all the patrons. Happy New Year and best of luck. Okay, here we go. Dave W. Thank you very much, Dave. You're going to receive whatever you want out of the books that I mentioned, plus some delicious coffee, and I hope you love both. Thank you so much. Please subscribe and hit the thumbs up if you haven't already, and always remember, bring a book wherever you go. All right. Thank you very much for watching. Great to see you as always. Take care of yourselves. Have a great night, and I'll talk to you soon. Ciao.